My favorite North American Dota 2 moment of all time takes me back a little bit to TI5. The qualifiers were set up. It looked like finally some Europeans had caught on to maybe North America being a little bit weaker of region. A team known as Team Tinker, Black, Koikva, Bulba, Way Too Sexy, and Pilot Die decided, hey, we have 3 Europeans, but let's go over to NA. This will be the easiest slot we ever had. But guess what? In the losers bracket finals, winner would go to TI. Loser is completely out. It went to a game 3. And a team known as the North American Rejects with Ush, Korok, MSS, Chad, AK, Bleak, and Fogged decide to take it in their own interest against these Europeans and decided to beat Mouse Sports, knocking Koikva, Black, and Pilodai out of the tournament and wasting Mouse Sports sponsorships. Shout out to the North American Rejects for doing that. I remember the game as well. The gyrocopter play, oh my goodness.
First time Omni. I was reading up the stats as well. I mean, heroes that had not been picked yet at Omni Night was really high up in that list.
It's TI4, I think the qualifiers for the event, and you've got EG, Mason EG, might I remind you, versus Alliance. This is the game to get into the International. Everything's on the line, and it's also my first Dota Pro game that I ever watched. I didn't really give a shit about Pro Dota or NA Dota or anything, but I was sitting on my couch and I got tons of messages from a bunch of my fans, like 20 fans at the time. I was just starting out, and they said Omni Night got picked in a pro game. Holy shit! This was back in the day where Omni Night was a pub hero. Nobody touched Omni Night, nobody cared about Omni Night in pro games, but NA Dota, EG, picks Omni Night, a hero nobody touches, for the most important game of the year. So, what do you got? You got Universe is on Omni Night, you got Mason is on Storm, and the game just looks terrible. The entire game, they're getting just shit on. And then all of a sudden, Mason just loses it on Storm Spirit. He's just going in where he has no business making it out of there alive. And then there's Universe the whole time. Pow! Pow! Just hitting those fucking purifications, baby. Oh! Anyway, so they're losing. Despite the Universe Mason combo. And Alliance, the typical European Dota rad bastards, are pushing both sides of the racks. They take both racks on both sides, and it looks like it's screwed. My first pro Dota game I ever watched. I'm excited. I'm having a great time. Omni Night, they're going to lose. But EG says no, baby. 46 minutes in, those crazy bastards go all in, and they're getting destroyed. And then out of nowhere, Zy on his freaking Enigma, BKB Black Holes, 3 dudes, Omni and Storm clean it up. They knock out Alliance. They go to TI. They don't do great, but NA Dota at its finest. I was standing in my room, screaming my lungs out, woo, Omni Night, yeah! My girlfriend comes in, she says, what the hell are you doing in here? And I just look at her and I say, oh, this is pro Dota, baby.
My most memorable moment in terms of NA Dota definitely came at the Manila Masters tournament in 2017. Courtesy of Evil Geniuses versus Team NP, which was the Eternal Envy and AUI squad at the time. And in terms of that big moment, like, they had this epic series that was going on throughout the lower bracket, EG getting knocked down by Newbie, and NP managed to take game 1. The whole tournament was just such a great exhibition of NA Dota, with EG making their way through the upper bracket and NP knocking down Faceless in the lower bracket. They took down Team Secret as well, and then they had to go up against, you know, the hometown kind of EG little rivalry there, and it looked like NP were going to do it. But in game 2, after already winning game 1, NP were about to try and close it out, but 65 minutes in, Sumail buys the Aghanim Scepter on the Storm Spirit. And for the first time in my life, I saw a 5-man Electric Vortex, which was just god tier. There were no buybacks left for EG. They had one hero with a buyback. It looked like the end of it, and that just one maneuver completely saved the game.
My favorite memory from NA Dota was all the way back in 2015 at the first Dota 2 Asia Championships, DAC. It was the first event that Sumail played with Evil Geniuses, and it was a huge multi-million-dollar LAN event, kind of like a TI for China. And the crowd started out really not liking EG or Sumail. Fear was, of course, popular because of the free-to-play documentary that he was in, but Charlie had told me the Chinese commentators were a little bit harsh on Sumail, had mentioned, like what kind of parents would let such a young kid dedicate so much of his life to the video games, and then all of a sudden they started winning. And as we got further into the tournament, they started winning the crowd over, and by the end of it, they were the superstars, and they ended up winning the whole thing. But it was such an amazing showcase of Sumail right out of the gate, and he lived up to the hype right away, and it was incredible to see this huge arena almost booing them at first, and by the end of it, cheering louder for EG and Sumail than they were for some of the home court teams. It was just an incredible moment that I'll never forget.
And if I had to pick a favorite NA Dota 2 moment, it would be the FPL 1v1 for Unvouch. It was 747 versus Demon. A little bit of backstory as to what was going on. FPL at the time was relatively new, and so you had a lot of different people that were sort of getting occasionally angry at each other for feeling like they didn't put out a good performance when they're playing in the league, or just other things that were going on, whether it was buying the wrong item or somebody griefing somebody else, whatever. It happens. This is in-house leagues. But the real drama really went down when it was 747 and Demon that were in a match together. 747 and Demon both wanted to play Shadow Fiend. 747 Snap picked it away from him. The other people on the team, if I remember correctly, were BSJ, Fogged, and then somebody else. I don't remember who it was. And then they were like, okay, we'll just play this game out. And then Clockwork bought a Wraith Band, who was Demon, and he bought a couple Ironwood branches. And then everybody left the game because they're like, this is stupid. We shouldn't be playing this. This is dumb. And so the thing and the reason that it was my favorite moment was not because people getting angry at each other, but it was the reaction afterwards. If you're going to ruin a game, it's going to be somebody's fault, and it doesn't matter whose fault it is. The real fault is the person that loses the 1v1 mid. For some reason, I don't know why that's the case, but it is. So they went 1v1 mid. 747 went ahead early, and if you guys know the matchup, this is something that tends to be able to snowball further forward. But then Demon comes back, gets the kill on him in lane, and then says good riddance as 747 leaves the game. And then he got unvouched for 10 days, and justice was served. Whether or not you agree with the method.
The biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head, there are others, but the biggest one is that back in Canada Cup Season 3, I think Season 2 or 3, some ridiculously long amount of time ago, back then, I think it was in 2014, there was a game between the Sneaky Nyx Assassins and Complexity, and of course Complexity they've been around for a while now, but this was a very one of the older iterations of Complexity back in 2014, and this game was game 2 of a best-of-3 series in Canada Cup, and it went about 60 minutes long. The kill totals at the end of the game were, I think, 120 was the total kill score after 40 minutes or something like that. And Z-Freak played one of the most amazing Skywrath mages I've ever seen in my life. He actually had 30 kills as a 4-position Skywrath mage at the end of the game, which to me was unusual then, but looking back on it now and looking back on Z-Freak as a player, I shouldn't have surprised me, I guess.